Hey guys, Chef Brooks here, just going through some best practices and cooking methods for some K-12 specific items. The first thing I want to talk about or look at are breaded products. I know we all use a lot of these. So I've got a boneless wing here, and I've got a breaded beef stick, and I've got two of these guys are up, they're elevated on racks. I know that not everyone has a rack. So the other thing I would mention is if you're going to cook just directly on the sheet tray, make sure you've got one even layer. A lot of times, especially with breaded filet products or a larger like tender, things kind of get stacked. Anywhere that air in that convection oven can't get to the breading, it's gonna remain soggy. That's why, as a best practice, if you can, elevate it up with a rack. You can even see, like on these beef fingers, some of the fat that's kind of rendered out during the cooking process, and those will, be a little bit soggier on the bottom. And then, post cooking, once you're going to serve this on the line, same thing. If you can get a rack down in that hotel pan that you're serving out of, please do. It'll keep them from kind of sogging out on the bottom. I know a lot of us are busy, and so sometimes we'll go deeper to like a 4-inch hotel pan. You want to make sure that you're turning that product over. If it sits there for a while in that 4-inch hotel pan, again, the layer on the bottom is going to be soggy. I mean, even if you kind of elevate it with a rack, anytime you're stacking a lot of these breaded products, you're going to start to have issues with just some moisture kind of building up, steam from the inside of the product, causing it to sog out. And then as you're cooking and you're going to your cook and hold, a lot of hot boxes will vent, or you could close it off. So you just want to make sure that when you're putting that product in the hot box, it's uncovered, and then you're vented on your hot box as well, just to keep that product from steaming. We just want to keep good, like dry heat on it. If you're going to take these and chill them, say for a grab and go option or a wrap or something like that, we still need to cook them all the way to 165 and chill them. Always follow those manufacturer's instructions that are on the box. If you're slacking this product out in the cooler and then trying to cook it from refrigerated, a lot of times you're going to notice like some of your breading will fall off, or sometimes the breading will oxidize and turn another color. It looks almost like mold, but really it's just that breading oxidizing. All these products are made to be cooked from frozen. So if you're going to that cook and chill, kind of like I was mentioning before, you want to make sure, again, you're just trying to avoid steam. So I'm going to cook my breaded product, and I'm going to let it chill kind of to room temp before I go all the way finally into the refrigerator to cool it. You'll notice, if you were to cook a couple sheet trays of these, put them on a rack and push them into the walk-in, you'll see the steam coming off the product. And a lot of times in between those sheet trays, that steam just kind of sits there, and it'll sog the product out before you even go to put it in your salad bowl kit or put it in the wrap. But all in all, just keep good airflow, elevated, kind of keep the product from sitting or stacking on itself, and we're just trying to avoid any kind of moisture buildup. All right, the next product we're going to talk about is fully cooked beef burgers. We all, serve these. I think we're very familiar with it. It's already got the grill marks. Again, this is another, follow your manufacturer's instructions. Cook from frozen. When it gets to best practices, like see here, I've got a single layer on my sheet tray. Again, if I really wanted these to kind of come out a little bit faster, I might put a speed rack or put a rack underneath there on this sheet tray. The other thing I've seen people do is they'll take these and they'll shingle them just to try to get more on a sheet tray, but it's going to take longer for that product to heat up. So when you shingle them like that, not everything's kind of exposed to the air. So as a best practice, cook from frozen, single layer on a sheet tray. They're going to come out a lot quicker than if you had shingled them together. But single layer, some fat's going to render off. You could put it on a rack if you wanted to, but I don't really feel like you get that much render. And again, these are fully cooked. I've cut a couple open here so you can see like they're fully cooked all the way through in the middle. Sometimes in the past I've seen where like for some reason the burger patty goes pink. These are cook and serve, hold for a little bit, but you definitely want to avoid putting them in an au jus sauce leave them in a hot box forever. That pinking a lot of times happens when there's a lack of oxygen and just a prolonged, like, excessive heat is where you're getting that thing. So, best practice, batch cooking. You don't need to cooking whole burgers for 3 hours. This is something you can have trade up on a speed rack, and you're just kind of cooking them off as you go. But again, kind of best practice, always follow those manufacturer's instructions. Cook from frozen, single layer on the sheet tray, and then just avoid those really prolonged, like, high moisture, kind of low oxygen holding situations, because that's where sometimes you'll see that pinking in the beef happen. All right, and now we're going to be talking about some unbreaded ingredient meats that we have. So what I've got with me today is a little bit of shaved steak, some beef crumble, and then I've got some fajita sliced meat. Again, with these, you want to follow your manufacturer's instructions. So a lot of times it'll say thaw, prior to cooking, and so what does that mean? So thaw could mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. Best practice is going to be to thaw it out overnight in your walk-in. Sometimes if it's something, like this shaved steak comes as like a brick. I might give that 2 days. And you could thaw in the bag like this on a sheet tray. If you wanted to kind of get a step ahead or jump ahead, this fajita chicken meat, I know that I'm gonna maybe hit it with some barbecue sauce or something tomorrow when I'm heating it up. So you could go ahead and dump it and thaw it in the pan that you're gonna cook it in, maybe save a step in the cooking process for the next day. But there will be times when you don't have time to slack it out overnight. So the next thing that people do is they will put something in a water bath or run water on it. And that works. What happens sometimes, and I've got this bag here to kind of show you, is sometimes the bag will take on a little bit of water. But again, it's, the best practice is to thaw that out overnight in the walk-in, before cooking. And if you're really in the hurt locker, because it does happen where, like, oh no, I'm gonna run out of product, I'm not gonna make it through service, what am I gonna do? My best suggestion would be, if you have a steamer, that you could, place this in a perforated pan and heat it through in the steamer before taking it out and tossing it whatever sauces or seasonings that you needed to. But again, that would be, kind of a 911 emergency situation. The other thing you could do would be to drop it into, some boiling water or steam kettle, something like that. But again, you run the risk of just having a little bit of, like, that water, the bag taking on some of that water. It's not always going to happen, but it does happen from time to time. So I think just to kind of recover that, these are unbreaded ingredient meats that we're using in the base of a lot of different dishes. So just make sure you have pulled what you need pulled. So hopefully you don't end up in that situation where you're having to cook something in a hurry in a boiling water or in a steamer. And when thawing, best practice overnight or maybe even 2 nights as you kind of get more familiar with your products. Some of these things that are just a big dense mass need a little bit more time than, say, the beef crumble, that kind of thing. All right, the next thing we're going to be talking about is saucing and when to sauce product. Put my apron on, I've got some gloves. A lot of times this can get messy. I've got 3 different items here again. So I've got a drumstick, I've got a breaded item, and then I've got some ingredient meat that we were talking about a little bit ago. With saucing, sometimes you're going to want to sauce pre-cook, sometimes you're going to want to sauce post-cook. With your breaded items or anything you want crispy, there's a little bit of skin on these drumsticks. I'm always going to want to roast that, get it cooked and get it nice and crispy first before I go to start saucing it. So like we were talking about earlier with these breaded products, you want to follow the manufacturer's instructions and cook from frozen. And then you kind of want to sauce like as you're going. I would not sauce a breaded product and just throw it in a hotel pan and hope that it's going to be crispy later on. It's just going to start to take on a lot of that moisture from the sauce and sog out. So this is another good batch cook, batch sauce. I might batch cook these and hold them in a hot box and then sauce a sheet tray at a time as I'm serving. with this drumstick that I've got over here. This product's not breaded, so you could thaw and cook, or you could cook from frozen. Just kind of depends on how your operation is set up. But again, there's some skin there that I want to get crispy. And a lot of times, if you pre-sauce, and I'm going to go in and roast in an oven on an open sheet tray, you're going to get some reduction in that sauce. The sugars can caramelize and they can even burn. So it's just something to watch really anytime that you pre-sauce something and then put it into an oven. You run the risk depending on the sauce. But again, so I've got these guys. I'm going to kind of bake them off just to get them a little crispy. And this is a sheet tray that I had kind of put in before so that you could see. But yeah, nice crispy kind of golden brown skin going on there. And same thing, I've got my kind of crispy nuggets. And a lot of times people will sauce on the sheet tray, just to kind of save on dishes, or for the sake of expediency. But I would say, you can save your sauce bowl if you're doing batches of these kind of throughout the day. And I'm gonna, put these drummies in here. And same thing with these wings. And then it's just kind of get a good toss. And when you're in a bowl, you're gonna get a lot more coverage. And if you need to get your hands down in there, you can as well. And this is where I was saying, a lot of times you're gonna struggle to get good sauce coverage on a sheet tray. But when you get in a bowl, you just have a lot better opportunity to really kind of get everything glazed up, if that makes sense. So, best practice, again, with these two items, we're saying that we would want to post glaze just in this situation to kind of get that drum roasty, golden. A lot of times if I pre-sauce this drum before I put it into the oven, then I'm not going to get that crispy skin, or I'm not going to get that golden brown that I'm looking for. Same thing with this nugget. I'm just going to sog out that breading prior to cooking it. So it's just a bigger uphill battle that you're trying to fight there. The other thing that we want to talk about is ingredient meat. And so this is just some fajita strip ingredient meat. This is a situation where I want to pre-sauce. And I'm pre-saucing just because I'm going to cover this. I'm going to go in the oven with it covered when I get ready to cook it. So I don't have to worry as much about that, like the burning and the caramelization happening on the edges. And then this ingredient meat's going to take on a lot more flavor this way. You could, cook it on a sheet. You could cook it before saucing it and then sauce it afterwards. But this just kind of gets everything in there, and it gives like those flavors a chance to kind of meld together. And again, I'm just thoroughly coating all that product. I let this slack out in the pan overnight, so I'm saving myself a step. Instead of having to cut open a bunch of bags today, I had taken that ingredient meat, slacked it out overnight. Now I'm just adding my Korean barbecue sauce I have here. I'm going to cover it and go in the oven. And here I'm really just trying to retain a lot of the moisture that's already in that product, and have it take on some of that sauce. But that's about it as far as saucing goes. Lots of PPE, gloves, apron, roll the sleeves up, that kind of thing. Use bowls when you can. Sometimes mixing in a hotel pan is another option. And if you have to mix on a sheet tray, sometimes you have to mix on a sheet tray. But really, the best option for saucing is going to be in a bowl. Just to kind of recover these. This was our post sauce or post glaze. The reasoning behind that, again, so to keep our breading from becoming soggy on that one. Same thing, we want to get the crispy, kind of golden, delicious brown going on with that drum before we start tossing it in sauce. And again, kind of the consideration here is that these were cooked uncovered, on an open sheet tray where that sauce, a lot of reduction can happen really quickly, and you can have caramelization or burning on the sheet tray, or even sometimes on the product. It just depends on the amount of sugar and other additives that could be in the sauce. And again, with that ingredient meat, I'm kind of going in a different direction where I've pre-sauced or pre-glazed it, where I'm really wanting those flavors to meld together as I'm heating it up in the oven. And then when it comes out, this is just ready to heat and serve. Thank you for joining me today as we've covered best practices for cooking breaded products, unbreaded ingredient meats, when to sauce. I feel like there was a lot of content here that can hopefully help you in your operation day to day. Keep on cooking.